After years of wandering, Swami Ramdas settled in a small ashram set up by one of his devotees at Kasaragod in Kerala. Eventually, he settled down in Kahanagad, where the present Anandashram is situated. He had great reverence for all saints and sages. Whenever he referred to them, he would say that Ramdas was only a child of all the saints. Naturally, he had great respect and reverence for Bhagavan Sri Ramana, once saying of him, Sri Ramana Maharshi was in all respects a remarkable saint. After realizing the eternal, he lived in the eternal. His advent was a veritable blessing on the earth. By his contact, thousands were saved from the clutches of doubt and sorrow. He lived what he preached and preached what he lived. He exerted a wonderful influence and created in the hearts of ignorant men and women a consciousness of their inherent divinity. He awakened the sleeping soul to the awareness of its immortal and all blissful nature. By his very presence, he rid the hearts of people of their base and unbridled passions. The faithful derive the greatest benefit by communion with him. As Swami Ramdas had attained realization through uninterrupted chanting of the divine name of Ram, through Om Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, he did so also with contemplation on the attributes of God. And he always extolled the virtue of nama japa in sadhana. Based upon his personal experience, Swami Ramdas assured all seekers that nama japa would lead them to the supreme heights of realization and oneness with the Almighty. The greatness of Swami Ramdas was that he converted Jnana Marga into full Bhakti Marga, which is the path of wisdom into the path of true devotion. On the power of the divine name, Swami Ramdas had this to say: the divine name is pregnant with a great power to transform the world. It can create light where there is darkness, love where there is hate, order where there is chaos, and happiness where there is misery. The name can change the entire atmosphere of the world from one of bitterness, ill will, and fear to that of mutual love, goodwill, and trust. For the name is God Himself. To bring nearer the day of human liberation from the sway of hatred and misery, the way is the recognition of the supremacy of God over all things and keeping the mind in tune with the universal by chanting the divine name. In this connection, Sri Bhagavan once told Devaraja Mudalayar, the name is God, and quoted the Bible. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Old devotees speaking of Swami Ramdas. These are old devotees that had spent time with Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi and also Swami Ramdas. Besides referring to Swami Ramdas's articles in the Vision magazine that his ashram produced, Sri Bhagavan would advise sadhaks, spiritual aspirants, to go to Anandashram and spend some time there in the company of Swami Ramdas. Especially when serious aspirants who did constant sadhana at Sri Ramanasramam felt an inexplicable fatigue at a particular stage in their inner journey and reported it to Sri Bhagavan. Balarama Redayyer, who first came to Ramana in the mid-1930s, had this to say: "At the time of my first visit to Swami Ramdas in 1937, his former wife, former only in the sense that their relationship form changed, had already passed away, but other relatives, including his daughter, would visit the ashram daily. The Swami would cheerfully move about amongst all these family members and devotees, never putting on the airs of a sannyasin or even that of a householder. He treated everyone as part of the same family, in a very natural, affectionate, and above all, detached manner. It was a delight to watch him. He would sit with anyone in all guilelessness and humility and begin narrating one story after another, all from his direct experience and life. During my first visit, there was only Mother Krishnabai and 2 or 3 sadhus living in the ashram. Ramdas would be engrossed in telling me a story or reading from his manuscripts when Mother Krishnabai would appear with food and feed us. During my first visit, Ramdas was present for only 2 of the 4 weeks that I stayed in the ashram. Devotees from Maharashtra state were eager to see him, and so he had traveled there. After he left, Mother Krishnabai was kind enough to tell me some stories from her life, describing how she came to Swami Ramdas. It was all very interesting and elevating. When I returned to Sri Ramanasramam, I received a letter from Anandashram wherein they requested me to write in English all I had heard from Mother Krishnabai. With full consent from Sri Bhagavan, I did this for them, and it was included in her biography. Not long after that, when I was alone with Sri Bhagavan, he asked me about Swami Ramdas. He wanted to know his daily schedule, and in particular, what Ramdas did in the mornings. It was unusual for Sri Bhagavan to inquire about others in this manner. I told him that someone had suggested to Ramdas that he should daily practice pranayama, as it would be good for his health. It involved simply inhaling slowly and deeply, then exhaling slowly, without any breath retention. And Swami Ramdas was doing this for 1 hour every morning. I also told Sri Bhagavan other matters concerning his daily routine. And when I visited Swami Ramdas on my return from North India in 1938, I only stayed for a few days. Upon leaving, Mother Krishnabai gave me some food to offer to Sri Bhagavan. The practice of sending food items to Sri Ramanasramam from Anandashram became an established tradition which continues to this day. For Sri Bhagavan's Jayanti celebration, Mother Krishnabai would send a large quantity of dried banana chips and kanji, and even after her passing, these generous offerings continue, not only for Sri Bhagavan's Jayanti, but also at other times. Vishwanatha Swami was staying at Anandashram at the advice of Sri Bhagavan. After some time, when he was planning to return to Arunachala, Swami Ramdas requested him to translate into Tamil his book, In the Vision of God. On his return, he mentioned this to Sri Bhagavan, and Sri Bhagavan directed him that it would be better to undertake such a literary work in the presence of the saint himself. Hence, Vishwanatha Swami stayed at Anandashram and completed the translation of Swami Ramdas's book. And after his return to Arunachala, he corresponded regularly with Anandashram, and in the course of this correspondence, he wrote about my observing Mouna, silence. Soon after this, he received a letter from Swami Ramdas, wherein he wrote, Balarama Reddy is observing Mouna. That is very good. He is a pure soul. A day or so after this letter arrived, I was entering the ashram early one morning at 5 a.m. by way of the stairs on the northern side. One has to ascend a few steps and then descend a similar number of steps, which takes you down to the ashram level. These steps take you over the bund, beside a small canal bank, where water would flow during the rainy season. When I reached the top of the stairs, I met Sri Bhagavan and his attendant who were proceeding in the opposite direction. I stood aside to let them pass. Sri Bhagavan looked at me and said, Vishwanathan received a letter from Swami Ramdas that said, Balarama Reddy is observing Mouna. That is very good. He is a pure soul. Bhagavan repeated this sentence to me in English. S.S. Cohen, Reminiscence of Swami Ramdas. I found myself landed in Anandashram in Kahanagad, on the North Kerala coast, of which Swami Ramdas was the presiding deity. I had planned to stay there for a few weeks, but somehow I lingered on for more than 8 months. Being far from the public road, Anandashram enjoys a natural, quiet, and sweet, idyllic simplicity, which made it a congenial retreat at that time for me. So I liked the place and stayed on and did my work in my own way. Even the peculiar atmosphere of this ashram suited me in my moods those days. After a short while, I began to distinguish the psychical difference between it and Ramana Ashramam. I was greatly amused when I detected the way Swami Ramdas was affecting me. It enhanced the boyish tendencies that had been at times causing me much inconvenience, and at which I had been trying to curb. The loquacity, the hastiness in action, the quickness of temper, the extreme sensitiveness to sound, the bouts of paralyzing shyness. I had spent 15 years since 1925 in comparative loneliness and silence, but Anandashram drew me out of the spontaneity of my adolescence for a good part of the time I was there. Joy permeated everything. The hills, the grazing cattle, and the very air one breathed, all were joy-inspiring, all Ramdas's Ram. In the spiritual life of some devotees, what counts most is genuine bhakti, true devotion, irrespective of labels and nomenclature. And Anandashram was, no doubt, surcharged with it. But it was a bhakti which was nurtured by joy. Joy and love oozed out of every pore of Swami Ramdas's being and infected his entire ashram and neighborhood. Swami Ramdas was always in a state of bliss, and yet exceptionally simple and practical in his day-to-day life. He enthralled the devotees with meaningful stories which helped them in their sadhana.